the triumph of good. That's the topic of today's Golden Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. The triumph of good over evil. If you're a Christian, it's already happened, right? We've already won the battle. If you're not a Christian, every day is a fight that makes no sense to you, that overwhelms you, that wears you out and beats you down, and sometimes causes you to quit because you don't see the larger battle happening. You don't see the battle of principalities playing out on the secular world, in the material world. And before I get into all that, I want to quickly mention, if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app. That is the online platform for your faith-based podcast. Get Bold and Blunt at washingtontimes.com. You can subscribe to Bold and Blunt there, along with my 3 times a week newsletter. Just go to the bottom of the washingtontimes.com page, find the newsletter section, click on it, find my name, and sign up to my 3 times a week newsletter. Contains my commentaries, as well as my twice weekly Bold and Blunt podcast. But of course, you can get Bold and Blunt at Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. Just do a search on Google. Just type in Bold and Blunt podcast. See what pops up, and you can subscribe there. The triumph of good. The triumph of good over evil. If you're a good person, if you're somebody who cares about law and order, if you're somebody who cares about the Constitution and transparent government and right and morals and virtues, then you're looking around at today's world and you're thinking, my gosh, how did we get this dark? How did we fall so far so fast? And maybe not around the world even. Just look at America. Look at how America has changed over the last couple decades. Most of you are old enough to remember the change. Think back to Bill Clinton days, when it was an immoral Bill Clinton in the White House, but it wasn't a Democrat president who hated America and wanted to completely destroy America, at least not so openly. Maybe his wife was a little bit more socialist than he was, but Bill Clinton, the president, was a lot more pragmatic as a leader when it came to pushing agendas, pushing policies, and so forth that weren't in line with conservative or even constitutional principles, but they weren't so overtly anti-American. They weren't so, I'm going to tear America down and usher in a new form of government in America called cultural Marxism or collectivism. That was Barack Obama. And things really started heating up under Barack Obama because Barack Obama was a guy who cared nothing for law and order or the Constitution. He mocked it, he scorned it. He stuck his middle finger up in the air at it. And he even promised to bring a foundational shift in America's government. 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of watching the divide and conquering of America go forth. 8 years of watching Eric Holder, Barack Obama's wingman, abuse his position as the highest law enforcement official in the land, basically, abuse that position to divide and conquer and separate society into little classes, mostly by race, to pit people against each other. 8 years of, I've got a pen, I've got a phone, who needs that silly old Constitution, that crummy old Congress? I am the law. 8 years of that. And we very nearly lost American exceptionalism under Barack Obama. And then came Donald Trump, right? Then came Donald Trump. And he outed all these deep state forces that had been giggling in glee behind the scenes, rubbing their hands as they plotted and strategized in the dark corners of America's politics, how to destroy America without having Americans notice. That was how Barack Obama governed. Then came Donald Trump, and he yanked all those dark forces out of the corners. He showed us who they were. We, in the conservative side of things, we with discernment, knew that they were there anyhow, knew that there was this sort of dark, shadowy force that was working within the boundaries of government to crumble government in America. But maybe we didn't know their names. We didn't know all their names. We didn't know all their devices and designs and strategies. And then came Donald Trump, and he showed us. He showed us just James Comey, who for years had enjoyed this sort of reputation as above the politics type of law enforcement official, just so honorable and so forth. And he showed us how James Comey was basically a fraud. He showed us how our intelligence forces would actively undercut political will, the people's will, and actually do things that benefited foreign nations over America. He dragged some of these people out of their corners so that they committed lies in front of the American people during testimony on Capitol Hill. Peter Strzok. He showed us the evil behind some of these people's carefully positioned public expressions. Andrew McCabe. He showed us how willing our intelligence agents were to do the bidding of other nations over the interests of American citizens. He showed us how willing our intel forces were at spying on American citizens for no constitutional reason, just because they could. James Clapper, John Brennan. He showed us all this. And he showed us how active China was in working with members of our own political class to advance communist principles in America. He did a lot. He did a lot in his 4 years, and all along he fought these deep state forces who made up lies, lie after lie after lie, Russia collusion, so forth and so on. I'm so tired of hearing about that. He dragged them out of the dark and threw them into the sunlight, and now we know their faces and names. It was a triumph of good for a time. Then came Joe Biden with a questionable election, and the midterms with more question marks over elections. And now, here we are again struggling against the same deep state that Donald Trump outed, the same type of forces that want to destroy America from within and sell us down the river to Chinese, communist, globalist forces, to enslave us to the likes of Bill Gates, to put us under the tyrannical leadership of the likes of an Anthony Fauci, if not Anthony Fauci, the next medical bureaucrat to come and take his place, to put us under the power of an elite, select few in the global government, the Davos crowd, and have us all eating crickets and other insects as we walk to jobs that are approved by the select few, and we make incomes for our families that are set by the select few, and we envision goals and dreams for our children that are already decided by the select few, that we cede all our private property, all our resources, our souls even, to the select few, and as Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum suggests, we will own nothing and be happy. Read your 1984, read your Animal Farm, read your George Orwell, read your Ayn Rand. There's plenty to read out there that shows exactly the plans and plots of these select few. And if you want something more modern, just go to weforum.org. You can see it all spelled out there at the World Economic Forum. Read Bill Gates's How to Beat the Next Pandemic, and you can see it all spelled out there. How these elites want to rule and control the world's populations. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy. It's out there in print, ready for anybody to read. And so how, under Joe Biden, this feckless puppet administration, are Americans now to stop this deep state from working actively with the global forces to cripple America, which is the last wall of freedom in the world? Once America falls, and caves to these world global governments, the entire world will be enslaved to these world governments, global governments. How can patriotic Americans fight now? How to triumph as good over evil now? Well, here's the answer for that. By fighting. You as an individual can fight. You as an individual can do what you as an individual can do. We don't have to see as individuals the entire battle after battle after battle. We don't need to know the entire end game in order to get in the fight. We don't need to take on Congress. We can take on our school board. We don't need to win the White House. We can win a local zoning board position or board of supervisor position. We don't need to completely destroy the teachers' unions in America. We can go to school meetings and stand up as an individual parent and bring about great change. So how to triumph as good over evil? You just do. You just do what you can as an individual. When an opportunity presents in your life to fight the good fight, you don't just shrug your shoulder and say, it won't matter anyhow. I'll let someone else do it. Or, it probably doesn't make a difference. Forget it. I'll just go along to get along. You don't do that. You just say, you know what? I'm going to fight this. I'm going to fight. And maybe it's just a little battle. Maybe it's just the tiniest thing. Maybe it's just next time that local CVS store or Walgreens store puts a sign in its window and says, face mask required for entry. It's the law. And you know it's not the law. You know it's just some local bureaucrat pretending like they have the power to mandate face masks on people, on free citizens of America. Maybe instead of throwing a face mask on to go in there and get that bottle of shampoo and box of Kleenex, you say, you know what? It's not a law. I'm not wearing a face mask. And you walk in without a face mask. And you make management come over to you and tell you to put a face mask on. And then when management tries to tell you to put a face mask on, you say, why? And when management says it's the law, you say, what law? When was this law passed? What's the law called? Show me the law online. Here's my phone. Show me where the law is. And you cause a little stir just in your little corner of the world. You put up a fight. You know what? That makes a difference. That makes a huge difference. And if everybody in America, every adult in America, taught their children in America to fight, just little things like that, that reminds the government who's the boss. That keeps the government from becoming this runaway train that we have right now. This runaway train that is busily bringing us into a state of collectivism and communism and cultural Marxism. It reminds government exactly who's the boss, who pays the bills, who can fire their employees, which is the government. But too few people do that these days. Too few people take up that fight. Too many people think, what's the difference? What can one person do? Well, thankfully, my guest today didn't have that attitude. My guest today is one of America's greatest patriotic citizens right now. His name is John Paul McIsaac, and you know him from the guy who brought us the famous Hunter Biden laptop story. And he has written a book about his experiences fighting the FBI, fighting the deep state, and so forth. But look, his fight is far from over because now he has a lawsuit going on against these players who have persecuted and tried to prosecute and condemn him and even commit acts of violence against him if they were so allowed, if he hadn't fled his home. John Paul McIsaac is somebody that we can all look to in America as examples of what one person can do, one person with resolve and determination and love of liberty and country can do. John, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on the show.
So everybody in the Bold and Blunt listening audience probably knows who you are, but just give a quick rundown of why your name is so famous in the media these days.
Oh dear. Depends, I guess, on what media you're referring to. I had the unfortunate interaction with Hunter Biden that left me in possession of his former laptop, which I realized the level of criminality on it. I had to hand it to the authorities. I just had no idea it would reveal how corrupt our federal agencies are. How's that for a nutshell?
And you've written the book on this, American Injustice. And what were some of the things that the FBI did to you?
Well, I think starters, it was my father's interaction with the FBI. When he took a copy of the laptop along with Hunter's a copy of the signed document giving me permission to recover the data from it to the FBI field office in Albuquerque, New Mexico on October 9th, 2019, he described to me that was the most humiliating experience in his life. This is a 31-year career colonel in the Air Force that never asked anything from his country except to go to the FBI that one day and ask for them to protect his son, because he knew his son was sitting on a time bomb, and I was out here on the East Coast in Biden country with nothing. And the FBI basically told him to, don't talk about this, lawyer up, and get out of our office. So that was the first interaction with the FBI that kind of clued us in that there's something foul in Denmark.
Did you suspect, I don't know your politics prior to when you've been making the media rounds talking about your experiences with receiving Hunter Biden's laptop at your store, but prior to that April 2019 moment, did you suspect that there was a whole deep state type of politicking that Donald Trump outed?
I voted for Trump in 2016 because he represented what I felt was what our founding fathers wanted the leader of the nation to represent, somebody that was successful in their private life, and when they felt like they could bring something to the table and take their success and put it towards the betterment of the nation, they hung up their hat and plow and they went to D.C. So I voted for him then because he represented the opposite of the swamp. And then when he drained the swamp became the mantra, it was, of course, you kind of feel like there might be something shady going on, and you want to see it routed. And so that's why I voted for him again.
But did you ever expect that the FBI would treat American citizens in a way that you yourself personally experienced?
Well, I think it was January of 2019 when the FBI raided Roger Stone's office. We had witnessed the Mueller investigation for the previous 3 years, so I kind of felt like the FBI was being weaponized, or at least portions of the Justice Department and the FBI were being weaponized to go after their political adversaries and protect their political friends. Obviously, I didn't trust the FBI, but I believed in the system, and that's why I made a copy of the drive.
And you have since, your life has been completely turned upside down. You've had to flee the state where you lived, yes, because of death threats?
Yeah, it took about 3 weeks of pressure before I had to close my shop and get out of town. It was getting pretty scary. I never really considered myself a political person. It's not what I look to when I seek out friendships or relationships with people. It's not a governing force in my body. But after all of this and being, completely canceled and bombarded and threatened from the left, it's kind of hard not to gravitate towards the right.
It's unbelievable how the media allowed the painting of your character to go forth as little more than a Russian hack.
Yeah, that was unfortunate because it seems to be their go-to. I think whoever does the writing over at the deep state needs to get some new material. This whole Russian narrative is getting super old. And if they had done any of their background, they know that I come from a military family. Both grandfathers were pilots in World War II. I have uncles and cousins that are either active duty or retired. It's kind of the family profession. And if I couldn't see very good, if I could see well, I would probably be flying planes for the United States Air Force just like my old man. But that's, I still feel the patriotism. I still feel the love of my country, even though I was denied the opportunity to serve. I volunteer. I've archived airmen from World War II through Vietnam, and I preserve their video and oral histories as a hobby. I mean, I bleed red, white, and blue. So to come out and say that I'm colluding with a foreign power to overthrow or overturn the result of an election or affect the course of an election is just absurd. And the fact that my grandfather fought communism, my father fought communism in Vietnam, it's like to be accused of being a Russian is an insult. And that's why in my lawsuit, I'm holding these people accountable.
Yeah, I wanted to lead right into that. How is the lawsuit going? What do you expect to happen from it? Do you expect to win? Do you expect to prevail?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Well, I've never thought I would ever sue anybody in my life. So obviously, I had a lot to learn when I went up against Twitter last year and lost. I learned, first off, that this process is very slow. So I can't get my hopes up. I can't set expectations. I still think there's people that are still getting served. So, it's a process. It's going to take some time. But you know what? I think that's kind of the purpose of it all, is to drag things out for them, to keep the enemy on the offense or on the defensive, so they can't go on the offensive. And we just run the clock out until Congress takes over and hold these people accountable.
So you never envision yourself suing anybody, so you start with the President of the United States. He is named in your suit, yes?
Well, the campaign to elect, because I don't think I would get very much traction going after him in the capacity that he's in now. But the campaign, he went before the American people. His press people went before the American people. He went to the American people during a debate to say that all of this was a plot from the Kremlin and a part of a Russian disinformation campaign. So either he told everybody to tell everybody, or somebody else did. And that's what I'm hoping the lawsuit will get to, is we get to discovery, we get to preservation, we get to find out who gave the marching orders, who decided that it was okay to have a federal agency collude with social and mainstream media to affect the outcome of election by hiding valuable information from the American people. And I think I've been given an opportunity to at least try to hold them accountable. You said something about, do I hope to win? This isn't a battle I'm supposed to win. I think this is something I'm just supposed to live through. The idea is not for me to win; it's for them to lose.
So you must have suspicions about who may have issued the orders and so forth. Do you have anyone that in mind that you think is ultimately to blame?
Well, I have my thoughts. I've learned in the tech industry, at least, speculation is never a good thing. You kind of have to go after ones and zeros and the facts. And I know that there's 51 intelligence experts, quote unquote, that were so easy to lay down their credentials and their careers to pen a letter that's obviously false. So I figure those are kind of the foot soldiers. And now we have to figure out where's characters like Jim Baker. And if there's other individuals that were in our intelligence apparatus that are now in high-level, council positions in other tech companies, we need to kind of figure out where these people are and figure out where they are on the ladder. I don't think we're there yet. I think if there is a deep state, I think it's been around for a while, and I think they're well protected.
I agree with you on that. And I like how you say this isn't about you winning. It's about the other side losing, because that strikes to the core of what you're fighting for is just basic American liberties. And on that note, what do you see as the state of American liberties, both by what you yourself experience personally and looking forward, understanding the political landscape?
Well, I think that if there's a large portion of the people that think that we're inching closer and closer to socialism, and I got bad news for them, that we already have a state-run media. We already have a state-run social media. We already have the government overreach that we criticize other countries for having. And because we buy and sell them freely on the stock exchange, I guess it's okay. I haven't quite figured it out when everybody else will wake up to it, but there's definitely the government has just gone off the rails, and it needs to be brought in.
Absolutely. We're basically socialist in everything but name. Agreed?
Agreed.
And under this administration, we are seeing an alarming push to bring in the globalist Great Reset type vision into America, and with great success. Do you see us in the next couple of years just being fundamentally changed as a nation as Barack Obama wanted it?
No, I think, again, I might be just a naive repair guy, but I always kind of go back to these metaphors. But maybe sometimes you have to watch something break before you can fix it. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity. Like, what if the laptop, what if I didn't have the courage to hand the laptop over, or continuing to try to hand it over? Then we would not know what's happened to the FBI, and we wouldn't know the overreach that has occurred with our social and mainstream media. So we would continue to plow on and think that nothing's wrong. So the fact that this is all revealed, unfortunately for me, but that's hopefully, again, success to me looks like the entire nation waking up and realizing that we have to ask for a little bit more transparency than what our government and what these companies are giving us. And I think that we will, once we prove that this was not a conspiracy, that this is real. So we need to look at other things that we were told to not look at because they were conspiracies as well. So this is an eye-opening experience, and I'm hoping that good will come from it.
Yeah, that's an optimistic way to look at it. And, I like that sometimes you have to break things in order to realize that they need to be fixed. And maybe that's where we stand now as a nation. I wonder if you go back in time when Hunter Biden actually came in your shop, do you remember your exact thoughts and feelings and so forth? Not just then, but deciding whether or not to bring the laptop before the FBI?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I wrote a book about it, so it's clear in my memory. Initially when he came in, I because of the condition he was in, he was a bit intoxicated, and he was clutching 3 laptops, and one of them had a Bo Biden sticker. So often, as customers do when they have a deceased loved one, they bring in their old devices to get the memories off. And I just thought that was the case. So it was a roller coaster for me, because at first I felt bad for this guy. And then after I had to verify the data transfer, I realized, oh, no, this isn't Bo's computer. This is Hunter's, and it's gross. Then it was like, it's just gross. And I don't feel bad. I should have charged him more. then his dad runs for president. So that goes to, oh, great. Now I'm sitting on all this embarrassing material. Somebody's going to want to come and clean it up. More importantly, Hunter's in possession of a document that says, I've been given permission to recover the data. So I just figured it was just a matter of time. And then when it became my property, and I knew I had looked at it, and there was definitely some bad stuff on there, I knew it had to go to the authorities. I knew if I didn't go anywhere else, I would get in trouble. I would be torn to pieces. I had to follow the rules, even though I felt like the rules were bent in their favor.
Are you a man of faith, John? Where do you get your resolve from?
Well, lately I get probably more prayers from everybody else than I'm doing myself. I'm a bad Catholic. I don't go to church as much as my Aunt Kathy wants me to, but I definitely feel like out of all the places in the possible northeast corridor of the United States of America that he could have dropped his laptop off, I think there's somebody might have had a say in that.
It's very interesting, and I happen to agree that things happen for a reason. Just talking, wrapping up in the last minute we have about your book, American Injustice, My Battle to Expose the Truth. When you think on the writing of this book, is there anything that shocked you more than anything else? Anything that just stays with you today and sets your teeth on edge or anything like that?
Well, I wrote the book over a year ago.
Yes.
And I had almost 5 months of people just turning me down and not returning my calls, trying to get it published, because people either still thought I was a Russian, or they didn't want their Twitter account frozen, or they just didn't care. So to see in that time since I wrote it, and then all the stuff that's come out, people starting to admit that it's not Russian, it's like, the overwhelming sense of, wow, everything's just a day late and $1 short. But at least it's coming around now, and it's fuel for the second book, which I'm hoping will have a happy ending.
Oh, good. Congratulations. I look forward to reading that one then.
Oh, it's got a lot less sex and drugs, and a lot more spy and behind-the-scenes stuff, which I think will be very interesting.
Last question, John. So you said more people are probably praying for you than you praying for yourself right now. If you could ask for any type of prayer, what would it be?
Oh man, it's armor. That's what I need right now. I need armor to face the battles to come, and they're going to be, Hunter's legal team is gearing up for their push, and we're gearing up for ours. And I just I want to have the buckle of truth around me.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, John Paul McIsaac. Thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt, and I want everybody to pick up your book, American Injustice, My Battle to Expose the Truth. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all your listeners who have given their support, because I wouldn't have been able to make it this far without them. Thank you.
You heard him. Pray for God to wrap him in his armor. It goes like this from Ephesians: helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, belt of truth, shoes of the peace of the gospel, sword of the Spirit, and shield of faith. And you know what? We could all dress in that same armor for battle against the deep state, the globalists, the leftists, the liars every day. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for faith-based podcasts, at washingtontimes.com, or Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Merry Christmas season, happy holidays, and so forth and so on. And stay in peace. God bless America, and tune in next time. And in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.